All right. Hot and cold is one distinction. And does anybody know the other distinction in classical medicine? Has anyone studied classical medicine here? Or traditional medicine?
Me.
Okay, so what's the other separation here? Were you the person that messaged on Instagram? Okay, cool, Bismillah. What's the other distinction?
The warm.
So we have another principle. So warm would be here, right? What's the other maxim? So when you take when you have a date, when you have dates,
Dry and
hot and dry, right? So therefore we have dry
wet.
and wet. Okay, so this is like classical medicine, as I've mentioned. Hot and wet comes together as a reality. Hot and dry is a second reality, third and fourth. And this is the foundations of what was known as the traditional medicine framework. So if a person had a hot mizaj and you gave them hot food, they would become very hot, right? And if the person was a young person who was in the hot stage of life, hot, very hot, okay? Then you have, in another instance, where a person has a cold mizaj, for example, and they would give them more balanced foods, and sometimes they would even give hot foods in a moment when somebody was off the scale, right? So, for example, what's cold and wet? Does anybody know what this reality, like this particular principle is called? In tradition, in this framework? In Urdu or Arabic or English? Water or... Yeah, so water is cold and wet. Balgham, phlegmatic, balghami in Arabic. Okay, so we have phlegmatic. So when somebody's literally like, you know, they got too much phlegm, they give them something of a dry nature, right? Something that was drier foods to dry them out. So this was classical medicine. Now it seems very simple. It's very complex, because a hakim would have to train himself in many different types of foods over a long period of time as a student of a teacher, and he would become familiar with how and the use of the foods. All right, so you do some of that stuff, right? Cool. So if any more information, I go to her on the foods. Everybody's always like, so which food do I need to eat? Khichdi. So yeah, there's a reason why, and I'm telling you, watch this. It's all gonna make a comeback. I was with Sheikh Hamza yesterday. He told me about the latest translation on the canon of medicine. Was basically the translators were talking about how the humoral theory is actually making a comeback. Yeah. So in medicine, it eventually got rejected due to it not being observed by the tools of measurement. So they said, oh, but where is phlegmatic? Where is choleric? Where is this one? Where is this one? And that's another, that's a journey in and of itself as to like, if we can't see a thing by the tools that we have, does that still mean it doesn't exist? Number one, just this one thing. Number two, even if a person said, old medicine, forget all of that, we would say there's still evidence, in a sense, for it from a psychological perspective, and that's where you get Carl Jung's 4 archetypes, and currently used as the disc analysis, colors theory, and lots of these psychological models out there. Now, what we need to be careful is we need to understand that whatever the case, Muslims never, did you guys give me that? Yeah. Muslims never were reductionists. So we never said only that just because you have this constitution and the hot, for example, choleric, and these are the Latin terms that we use quite often. If somebody's here in their mizaj, just because they're here currently doesn't mean that they will stay here. So unfortunately, there's a misunderstanding of this, where if somebody's choleric, people can't. If somebody's here, they can't work out how does the person get here, and does the person remain here, and is a hot-headed person always hot-headed, and so on and so forth. And so people expect to study the science without putting in 10 years. So unless we're willing to really study the science, then we can really understand all of its uses.